Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurs on Monocle Radio, the show all about inspiring people, innovative companies and fresh ideas in global business. On today's programme, we explore how smart AI can simplify business needs and create authentic experiences. First, we'll meet the co-founder of a platform that aims to be the first automated ledger for global companies.
How can we help you make your life easier and lighter by taking this very large, complicated area and eating and chopping away at it so that you free up your time to think more strategically?
Then we'll meet an entertainment industry leader who wants to help high-profile individuals, like a certain Lionel Messi, to reach people in new ways.
What we set out to do was to allow the most in-demand people in the world to be digitally scaled for one-to-one conversational engagement, but in a way where they trust the tools that they're using.
This is The Entrepreneurs with me, Tom Edwards. You're listening to The Entrepreneurs. Jonathan Sanders is the co-founder of Light, a Copenhagen-based smart platform that helps businesses manage their finances with ease and automation. He came up with the idea after recognising the challenges multinationals face as they try to grow, as crucial tax and administrative tasks become much more complex and for which existing solutions are outdated and often difficult to use. Light aims to rethink this with AI-powered tools that are simple, efficient and enjoyable, making it easier for entrepreneurs to focus on their bigger global goals. Jonathan stopped by Midori House. He began by reflecting on the value of running a complex company with simplicity.
Our entire premise is that it is easy to get up and running, and it is easy and joyful to run your company on our product. And that's where we came up with the name Lights. When we started the business and basically before we had a business, we started going down on this path and this idea, and we talked to both customers, potential customers, to investors, because this was a fairly upfront cost that needed to be invested to build this out. A lot of the feedback was that this is not possible to build, it's too big of an undertaking, and it's an area that it's too complicated. But when you go down and break it down in the fundamentals, it is, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, it is pluses and minuses are like the two fundamental operations you need to run in order to do your bookkeeping. You need to do quite a few of them, but that is virtually it. And we had a fantastic team on the engineering side that had the privilege of having built ledgers before. So we built that internally at the company I was at previously. And we took those experiences in building that ledger out, and now we said, let's build it out for the multinationals. And we spoke to all of the people we could find that had done this in the past, and some of them had done it 10, 15 years ago at some of the large incumbents, and some of them had done it 30, 40 years ago, so their memory of it was a bit fuzzy, but we basically learned from their mistake. And we found out that now the underlying machines and the technology is a completely and fundamentally different place than it was 30, 40 years ago. So you can actually build something that is quicker and simpler. And the key here for us is simplicity is one of our core values in Light, to really strive for simplicity. And by having a simple data model on the back end, we've really enabled both the engineering and the design at Light to iterate and work much faster and create a product that is much more intuitive and joyful to work with.
I've got to ask you about this because we've spoken a little bit before about the primacy of design. Obviously at Monocle, we talk always about why good design matters, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about placemaking, pages of a magazine, the confines of your studio. People would be probably amazed to hear how exacting you were in terms of the design language, design function, even your design recruitment. It's kind of antithetical to what we imagine a tech company, I guess if you want to call it that, would put value on. And I don't know if that's just your Scandi roots, but talk to me a bit about that, because it's so interesting to me that a company that is all about technical innovation and technological advancement puts such a premium on, in some cases, almost for design's sake. Tell me a bit more about that.
So for us, design is fundamental. And design and engineering is inseparable. It needs to be beautiful on the outside. It needs to be beautiful on the inside. And that goes back to how we even started with modeling the data model, how we built the entire operation. And at Light, what we try to do and what we're building for our clients is a product. And that product needs to be easy, simple, and intuitive to use as much as possible. And that's where design comes in. And so we spent a year and a half recruiting our founding designer. He used to be in the consumer space, running design at Klarna. And we're very lucky that we got him over, and now we have, still early at Light, but we have 3 designers now with incredible backgrounds, and some of them we've spoken to for a long time before we recruit them. We have the same approach to engineers. We just signed an engineer a couple of days ago that we spoke to for a year and a half because she had an incredible background. And that is one of the core pillars at Light is how can we rethink, and now it's one of the most interesting times, I think, in software and technology, because you have this completely new paradigm of AI, and you can use this generative AI to not only help do your bookkeeping and taxes, but simplify the entire human-to-machine interface. Make that more joyful, make that easier. And what we're building is figuring out how can we take all of those elements, the faster machines, the simpler data model, and the power of generative AI, and put that together, those components, mix them and bake them together with beautiful design. And the beautiful design is figuring out like which elements do what, and like how much engineering, how much AI, and how much CPU are we going to use for these different flows, and try to really rethink, okay, how can we actually, with everything that's possible today, take something that is quite complicated, such as doing your taxes across US, UK, and maybe Denmark, and make that operation seamless and joyful and give you the right context at the right time, and drive more towards outcomes than being this very heavy sort of toolbox where you need to operate every single tool yourself and need to understand every single tool in the toolbox. You are much closer on the actual output that you need. And that is where we try to give you a very beautiful design. So for us, the design is basically the product. And the product and the design for us is inseparable. And that's why we spend a lot of time on setting and hiring the right team so we can give our customers something that we think is a much, much, much better way of running, and like a glass of cold lemonade on a hot summer's day.
Yeah, I remember hot summer days from a few months ago when we had one here in London. It's so interesting. Just as one quick aside, so on this point about integrating AI processes into like general ledger management, this is an example where AI is a liberator of people's time, right? Because one of the lazy, even sometimes lazy journalistic narratives is, AI is here for your job. Yeah. And actually, if we look at it as the fourth industrial revolution kind of idea, when we had previous iterations of industrial revolutions, we created leisure. People got time to enjoy other pursuits. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this isn't about eliminating cost of people doing things, although let's hope we reduce costs, but it's about transforming what people are doing, how they're working, the amount of spare time they have, or the amount of time they can apply to things that are of more enduring value to their business. That's not me being naive, right, Jonathan? That's what AI in this instance is unlocking, correct?
So you have a lot of, it's completely true. You have a lot of application spaces for AI. You have, it can generate songs, music, art, etc. And what we narrowed in on and use it for is the complex topic of helping you with your taxes, helping you be on top of all of the new regulation and complexity. So, we help businesses across both UK, Europe, and the US. And one of the things that we keep seeing is that the level of rules and regulation becomes more and more complicated. And you have two choices. Either you a little bit give up and hope for the best, or you invest heavily in external advisors and build up a large team. And what we give our clients is how to leverage AI to reduce all of that complexity, that bureaucracy, as much as possible by giving it all to this artificial intelligence. And that's the entire thought behind Light, is how can we help you make your life easier and lighter by taking this very large, complicated area and bit by bit and piece by piece, eating and chopping away at it so that you don't have that doubt and uncertainty, and you free up your time to think more strategically instead of being so operational. Every time that we went through this transformation in prior companies, we would always scale up the team, and it'll be basically only on operational tasks. You know, how do we make sure that we're ready to file in this state by this date? How do we make sure we're ready in this country? You know, what's this consolidated look like? How can we file with our investors or board or shareholders? And making all of that easier and automated for you is the entire thesis of Light. And that's where we're really excited about using AI to take away what we perceive as the burden of making sure that your accounting, taxes, bookkeeping is done accurately.
What's next? Let's just talk briefly about that. I mean, it's interesting. We talk about ERP. I know you have projections about what this market's going to be worth by, in 5 years, 10 years. There's a huge opportunity here. Light is very much in the sort of vanguard of that. What are you most excited about? Is it the next deal you do, the next opportunity to demonstrate this efficacy with cases? Is it just about imagining where this journey can take you?
For me, twofold. One is working with clients, implementing it, seeing how we make their life better. And two is, so you work with client and they tell you about their problems, but it's always a little bit constrained about their experience. And number two is, working with our design, our engineers, and our team to really put the creative cap on and rethinking, okay, you used to have this process because that was the only sort of flow that was available. It was basically a digital copy of what used to be on pen and paper and sort of lives on as a framework. How can we fundamentally rethink that? How can we give them something better now that you have all of these capabilities? And we have a few of those instances, but we still have a long way to go before we fully there and rethinking everything. And this is back to the design of the product, basically how it works. But when we show that to clients, instead of you needing to go through these 4 or 5 clicks, you basically get all of it as an output, as an outcome, and it's ready for you. What do you think about that? And normally it's a very enthusiastic response we get with clients. And that's some of the stuff, and we don't always get it 100% right, but being creative, trying to rethink those core flows, making them better, that is the other side that gives us a lot of energy, because right now, I think we're just scratching the surface of, the technology also of AI is going to, in our view, be a lot better in 5 and 10 years' time. And so really trying to think, okay, if we think through 2, 3, 4 years ahead, what would the best possible design paradigm for this look like? And then starting to get towards that with our clients is wonderful. So we do sort of pre-accounting for them, so you don't need to select all your accounts, your tax categories, etc. We sort of help you with that, and that has been wonderful to see. But we also in a place where we can start innovating on the core sort of UI UX interface. So right now we're working on a mode of interfacing with Light where you actually don't use the mouse at all to do all of your operations. So this is maybe counterintuitive, but it's more back to the 60s and 70s where you can run your entire machine on keyboard. And the issue with that old paradigm was that you needed every single command to be exactly right. Otherwise, the system wouldn't run. It needed to be deterministic input. But now with AI, we can have a little bit of fuzziness around it. And so you can basically write this is what I want to happen. And you click enter, and then it does the operations. And so we do this internally, and the results are amazing. So instead of you needing to click and select different dates and figure out, how many days between this day and that day, and et cetera, you basically just very quickly write a sentence, and it do all of the different operations for you. And so that's finally something where I think that now we can do something that is much more intuitive and faster for our clients.
You're guaranteeing that this technology is going to be employee of the month every month, right? For CFOs everywhere. They know who's going to get the garland. What
I can guarantee, so what we were building towards, so when I first started my career, I started working here in London, and it was in a bank, and it was like a financial setup. And I remember all of the tools we had were like, it was PowerPoint, it was Excel, it was running on like Windows, I think desktop, maybe even, I think it was desktop. And then we got some laptops, right? But there was one product that was fun to interface with, which was this Bloomberg terminal. And so we've taken a lot of inspiration for that and basically rebuilding that in. So I remember that moment. And then, of course, that was a very expensive product that only a few people in finance had. But basically taking that joyful feeling and giving it to the entire finance function of a multinational is what we're doing.
That was Jonathan Sanders, the co-founder and CEO of Light. You can learn more by heading to light.inc. You're listening to The Entrepreneurs. Tim Levy is a media and finance industry veteran with more than 20 years of experience in the business. Having worked with major players like Universal, Tim was involved in producing and distributing films including the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, Jurassic World, Iron Man 2 and The Bourne Ultimatum. He's a bit of a serial entrepreneur with a track record of innovation. In 2018, he founded Twyn, a company that creates lifelike digital avatars for real-time, interactive, virtual experiences between users and talent based on pre-authorized, pre-recorded content. Imagine, for example, a digital twin of footballer Lionel Messi, in which fans could interact with the great man himself virtually, participating in immersive training sessions or experiencing lifelike match simulations. It's not perhaps as far-fetched as it might sound. Messi's a key partner of the platform, leveraging his own global influence and fan base to promote it, and providing exclusive content and experiences for users to engage with his digital twin. So, how does it all work? And can you have a real conversation with a digital avatar? Tim joined me here at Midori House to explain Twyn's potential.
What we set out to do was to allow the most in-demand people in the world to be digitally scaled for one-to-one conversational engagement, but in a way where they trust the tools that they're using. So my background is mainly the entertainment industry, a mixture of the entertainment industry and finance. Financing, producing, distributing about 600 feature films. And obviously, with that length of time and that experience in the industry, I have grown to understand quite a lot about the personalities who are at the forefront of the industry. Not only the leading actors that most of your listeners would know, but a lot of the producers and directors and creatives involved in creating those films. And so what that has made me understand is how sensitive they are to this issue around authenticity and ownership of intellectual property. I came at this actually from a completely bizarre angle. I was thinking about the whole area of biological longevity. And then, through some other businesses I was involved in, that were using some of the new tools that were arriving, such as virtual reality, augmented reality, holograms, AI, we started to think about, well, hold on, why are we trying to do this in biological longevity when the tools to do this in digital longevity are arriving? And they are going to profoundly change the way we can tell stories and share information. And actually, it's our ability to tell stories and share information verbally, interactively, that makes us human. And so my journey really started with thinking about what do changes in technology do to the way that we change the way we tell stories and share information.
Listen, we're getting into some really big hitting ideas, and we know there's lots of conversations about existential threats and the philosophy behind AI. Huge, big sweeping questions. What is the fix then that Twyn delivers? You spoke a little bit about it, but I guess in a way the ambition is to try and ensure that consistent engagement from people, but it's also to... Some of it's funny, isn't it? It's a little abstract. It's to tackle this positively, to take responsibility, to help fashion a constructive vision. Surely most people say to you, love the sentiment, Tim, but you're off your rocker if you think you can do this. How are you? How does Twyn deliver those? Because some of them may be vainglorious ambitions, one might imagine, but
that's a great question. So at the heart of what we do is that when you see a Twyn that everything you see is real, was filmed, and everything you hear is real, was filmed. There is no machine-generated images and there is no machine-generated content. So everything is real and everything is in context. AI is doing two things. Number one, speech recognition, to understand what a user is saying. Number two, to select the right slice of pre-recorded content to deliver back to you as a user. So essentially what we're doing is we're doing something actually which is completely intuitive and natural for those in the entertainment industry. We're creating filmed entertainment. Slices of filmed entertainment designed artfully to take you on a story experience or a gamified experience, but one where you have conversational agency. So it's like a FaceTime call. I mean, we say it's like sitting next to someone at a dinner party who happens to be someone you're acutely interested in, and they're telling you a story. But as a skilled conversationalist, they weave you into the story. So they lead you to the sort of things that you'd like to ask questions about. And you are able to use your agency in a way to probe the story more deeply. That needs very careful preparation from us. It needs very careful filming from us. But what you know as a user is this matters because it's really what this person thinks and has done and has said, rather than just being an algorithm that's decided, well, I'm going to put this forward as the answer because the data that I've been trained on leads me to hypothesize that this is an accurate thing to say. So some people would say, I don't care. Lots of people would probably say, I don't care. But I think who cares about it is the people to whom authenticity matters, and particularly the people who we are digitally scaling. They care very deeply. So why it matters is this. There are lots of super important and in-demand people in the world who we would like their knowledge, their skills, their experience, their answers to be more widely available, more accessible, more humanly accessible, more engagingly accessible. And the tools that Silicon Valley are creating, machine-generated content being a core one, are not the tools that these people are comfortable using at the moment. And so the danger is they say, no, thank you very much. We will not use that technology. We'll continue to do whatever we do the old-fashioned way that we've done it. And Silicon Valley says, no problem. There are lots of entrepreneurs out there who'll create non-real characters that can eat your lunch and who we will scale. And then we're into that world that I talk about where the world is so flooded by fakery, who knows and who cares? So that's what we're trying to stop.
What's proved the trickiest bit of this pitch? I can imagine, as you said, you must have met doubts, some scepticism, some healthy, some unhelpfully so. Securing buy-in, because there's lots of different stakeholders whose idea of what that authentic message sounds like, looks like, is different. What's been the hardest part of the square to circle, the square to circle, if you like?
An entrepreneur's journey is always rich and colourful and varied and difficult. And so we've gone down our fair share of rabbit holes in this. I mean, at first, we decided that when we started, we wanted to build a platform for legacy, to tell the story of people's lives. And actually, if you think about that, that's a really powerful use case. I mean, if we could take the learnings that we have and share them with future generations, perhaps even for millennia, in ways that they might be comfortable to engage with, then that's a powerful use case. And there are plenty of people who would like to do it. The problem that we hit upon quite early was it was going to be very expensive in the early days. And that meant that the guinea pigs would have to be very rich people. Very rich people are very demanding people. And so we realized quite quickly it was not going to be easy to find the rich people who would spend hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars doing this. They were not the right sort of guinea pigs. So I think sort of working out strategically where to point this was always going to be difficult. And I was lucky, coming from the background that I did in the entertainment world. It was quite quickly that we got to the point, well, maybe the right starting point is the people who are in greatest demand in the world and whose time is finite, but actually the demand for engagement with them is infinite almost. And so that led me down the path of going and speaking to the talent agents and so forth. So, and I think there have been some other challenges about strategy. So as we started to develop it and we saw that what we had envisaged was deliverable, we got very excited by the idea that its applications were everywhere. And so our thought process was, well, what happens if we can create an experience that feels like a real-world two-way conversation, but all of the content is pre-recorded, so you know as a user when you go onto it, you're not talking to someone who's live. It feels like it's a real live conversation about real subject matters, but it's not live. And therefore, you're taking away that embarrassment factor, as well as making it accessible at incredibly low cost any time of day or night. Obviously, in the case of particularly sports, football clubs, think about how passionately people feel connected to them. Think about music and how important pieces of music are to people emotionally in their lives. And then think about entertainment, how profoundly you're impacted by a great movie or a great piece of theatre or a great piece of art. And you can see that there's that sort of emotional element to people's interest in the characters involved. And so that is a natural for Twyn, because Twyn is all about making you feel more emotionally and intimately connected with the person that you have access to.
And again, I guess on that fundamental level, people say, yeah, but the thing about an artwork is, my emotion is informed by the visible, almost the palpable nature of the brushstroke, and the performance that I enjoy on the field of play or on stage is because I can see the perspiration, I can feel the impact. Yeah. Do you have to? Is the question of convincing people, not skeptics, but just people who say, look, I can't believe that I can get that experience that marries that emotional and human response via anything that is digital or other. Is that kind of
I think that any evolution of a content format does not happen all in one go. So much of this for us is a learning experience. It's about creating stuff, putting it out there, and seeing how people engage with it and interact with it. And of course, at the start, most people's feedback is, this is a bunch of rubbish. But of course, that's how you learn. It's a constant process of iteration. We're building this new content format. It's got applications everywhere, as we've already identified. But we're the only people that we know in the world on that journey, because everyone else is using machine-generated content. The real answer to your question about what has been most difficult is we wanted to launch what we're doing with someone who is a global leader. And people who have big global brands don't tend to take equity risk with their brands. So we had a lot of people, and I'm talking about people who have hundreds of millions of followers on Instagram, because obviously they have digitally native audiences. We had many conversations with people where they said, yes, my client would be interested, it would be a $10 million minimum guarantee or a $20 million minimum guarantee. And obviously they're making your company, so they should have a large share of the equity in your business. And that deal doesn't really work for an early stage company, surprisingly. So the hardest thing has been finding the right partner to really make a global splash with. And we found one who we signed a deal with 15 months ago and who we will shortly be going live with, which is Lionel Messi. Obviously, I would hope most of your listeners who would
Again,
know who
I think he's made an impression over a few years, Tim. Yeah,
and he's obviously an interesting test case for us. He's a global leader as a sportsman. He's very active also in the clean energy space, and he has a project which is involved with cleaning up the oceans that we are a small part of, and he's been a fantastic partner to work with in bringing this to reality. So we're excited about this coming along. But that has been the hardest part.
That was Tim Levy, the founder and CEO of Twyn, and you can learn more by heading to mytwyn.com, and that's Twyn spelled with a Y. And that's all for this episode of The Entrepreneurs. We'll be back at the same time next week. Do look out for Eureka, available every Friday. The programme was produced by Laura Kramer, with audio editing by Tamsin Howard. You can listen again and find out more about the show at monocle.com. That's where you can subscribe to Monocle magazine too, and read more about better businesses every month. You can also follow us and catch up with the archive wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with the team, email Laura on lrk@monocle.com. I'm Tom Edwards, goodbye, and thanks for listening to The Entrepreneurs.